The bottom line is that this is where the Revolutionary War in North Carolina began, at this site. Now, historians credit the Battle of Morris Creek as being the site where the war started. But that's not true. It was the property of King George III. And the elite planter class and working class men, numbering in the hundreds, took it upon themselves to first try and occupy the fort, but ultimately destroy it. Fort Johnston here, and of course Brunswick, 9.5 miles upriver. Wilmington, of course, the rival town. And it was well armed. It was not well garrisoned. 25 provincial troops, so don't think of the garrison being regular British troops like you would see in the Patriot. These were provincial troops. This was essentially the same thing as militia guys. We're talking about the greatest superpower in the world at the time, the greatest navy, the greatest army, the greatest empire in the world, and at least on paper, there's no way that 13 disparate colonies are going to be able to defeat the greatest superpower in the world. That affected everyone. So it is the Lower Cape Fear that becomes the center of resistance against these changing imperial economic policies. Again, the Stamp Act was the most hated of them all. That went on all night long, and the goodies came out, and everybody had a great time. The first massed armed resistance to the Stamp Act in any of the colonies occurred at Brunswick Town. But what the Stamp Act resistance and the Lower Cape Fear made very obvious to British authorities is that the Americans were willing to resist. The Crown had not put down the iron fist with them. So every time they sort of pushed it a little bit further, the Crown backed off. And so authorities responded passively to violence or the threat of violence. And that was not lost on the Cape Fear residents. The Patriots learned of Martin's proposal. It didn't take long for the playbook to get intercepted. So they respond by mustering local militia forces out of the Wilmington district, out of the New Bern district, and out of outlying counties like Bladen and Duplin and Dodds and on and on. And they prepared an attack on Governor Martin's base of operations. If we could deny him his base of operations, then the whole operation would fall apart. So let's occupy Fort Johnston. Let's capture it. So as rumors of an attack on Fort Johnston swirl more and more, along with rumors of a kidnapping plot against Josiah Martin, he took refuge on the HMS Cruiser, going aboard on or about July the 8th. So by mid-July, several hundred men led by James Moore assembled at Brunswick Town for this planned advance on Fort Johnston, led by Robert Howe, who owned Kendall Plantation, the next plantation up from Orton, and James Moore, and fiery John Ash, Cornelius Harnett Jr. I always thought there should be a beer called Cornelius Harnett, like Samuel Adams. They probably would not have attempted such a blatant act of aggression had the fort been occupied by British regulars. But again, there were only about a dozen provincial forces here. An officer went banging on the door. "Fort's on fire, the fort's on fire." And Captain Perry and Governor Martin rushed topside, and with the other loyalists and the crewmen stood there and watched the fort burn, and burn all night long. They just decided to burn it. But think about that. They are now burning the property of the King of England. The assault by the Patriots received the official thanks of every committee of safety in North Carolina. Way to go, guys. Way to show the king. With such great alacrity, its members resolved, officers and soldiers gave their attendance to effect a matter of so much real importance to the public. So in every newspaper in North Carolina and in Virginia and in South Carolina, you get these kinds of accounts from members of the Committee of Safety. Now, the attack also emboldened patriots with much greater confidence that they could stand up to the king and his men. So this was all part of this burgeoning revolutionary movement in North Carolina. This we mention with pleasure as proof of the readiness of the people upon any emergency in defense of their rights and privileges. And it was only the beginning. While Governor Martin responded passively to the attack, the king will approve his proposal for a major military campaign in the South in 1776. Not the Chesapeake, not Rebellion Road in South Carolina, which again were logistically much better for military operations than the narrow Cape Fear River. You couldn't get warships beyond the flats, and he wanted to invade North Carolina. So why did the king, and the king approved this campaign, why did he do it? Because of what happened right here on July 19th, 1775. His subjects had the audacity to destroy his property, and now there will be payback. So the war in North Carolina started here.